Today we have rather interesting update, and it's not just update, it's tectonic shift in processing of work permits for startup visa program. And when we say tectonic, it means it's massive. And some people trying to underestimate, and I heard opinion from some lawyers and consultants who just brush off this complexity of this process, but it means only one thing: they never did it before. That's for sure. So why I'm saying this in such reassurance? Because we practice this, we know this in a day-by-day scenario, and we know that in a sense this shift is significant because this is the first ever update on startup visa processing work permits after all these years of the program. And that proves what I said before. This is a growing program. This is a program that's evolving, and you have to pay attention and you have to work with people who practice this on a daily basis. It's important because you have to understand the process from inside. And who better understand the process than those who practice every day, just like any other profession and any other specialty. Anyway, let me get through this very quickly because it looks like by the massive amount of information coming, it looks like we will have detailed explanation on every single aspect of this update. So if we go through today's overview video, okay, so don't expect me to dive in deeply, but I would like to announce certain things that definitely need to be announced ASAP because people are in process, people waiting for expiration of their letter of support, people waiting for multiple factors to get into play. This is what you need to know today. So this is about startup visa business class work permit processing under International Mobility Program. And we have to remind that this is exception code A77 because many people confuse about this and using C10, C11, C8, A75. Those codes exist, but not for this specific program. So let's pay attention. What's on the list? Well, first and foremost, it's a place how and where you can submit your application. Before it was possible to submit it at the port of entry upon arrival to Canada. That's not the case anymore. If we go forward, big amount of data dedicated to processing of essential members as those who qualify for work permit under startup visa program. And one of those, I'm just looking at this right now, it's for permanent application in process. So it means you have to have PR application already filed before you file for work permit. People say, so what? What's the big difference? Well, the difference is before we were able to submit application for work permit before application for permanent residency was filed due to certain urgency of arrival, family circumstances, such things. Second big change on the scale of application, where and how it can be submitted in relation to permanent residency application. Now all essential members must be submitted for permanent residency before those essential members, at their own discretion, still there, apply for work permit. What's next on the list of the government? Well, I like that because overall it brings more certainty to the processing of work permit. We have, for example, what kind of proof will be required. Before it was kind of vague and unclear. Now we can present to our clients and say, okay, this is not us. This is government who is asking you about this proof of your status in the team, proof of financials, and other things. So, needless to say, it's all online submission. People who work with us know that already. What we have and what we need to pay attention is that we need to prove now that when we submit work permit application, people who are in process still in process actually for permanent residency. Why, people may ask, why this is so critical, why it's important to verify for the officer that application for permanent residence is still in process. Well, just like any other program, some people use this particular program, this loophole that government effectively closing now, as reason to arrive to Canada. And when they arrive, they forgot about their PR application because it was probably refused by the time, and they just trying to stay here any other way, which obviously brings some very bad taste for the processing officers when they deal with startup visa. So now it's getting cleaner, which is good. And next things on the list, we need to make sure we have a full stack of supporting documents, police clearance described here, medical examination, and all those things. Now getting into a role, how this role described the role of the person who arrived on the work permit. Before, it was confusion about that, and people got very much messed up about how present themselves, because even government actually requested and treated those entrepreneurs who arrive on the startup visa program as employees, which was ridiculous. Yeah, I agree, but that's what happened, right? So basically, we need to pay attention to the fact that now government clearly provided instructions to processing officers. This is manual we're talking about for processing officers. They are employers and employee in the same time. So basically, this is clear now. We can apply with clarity, and government, it looks like, taking care of processing officers who actually can and must assess this application fairly. So other things in place, like designated entity, is a separate section on this update. And again, we will write special letters about this. We will record special videos section by section. It looks like it's deserved to be addressed in a very detailed manner. But for now, we just take an overview. So we have certain updates on designated entity processing, what they're supposed to provide, how they're supposed to provide it. It goes on since January 2021, when government started pre-processing of applications. So with that, I can only underline that designated entity, as you can see here, will provide IRCC with section of the support letter, and then designated entity send commitment certificates to IRCC. When only short portion must be provided to actual employees and entrepreneurs, startup visa applicants. This is significant because, again, people say, what's the difference? Well, the difference is, before we receive certificates, we send it all to applicants because that was the procedure. Now we don't do that. This is critical to understand, that now we authorize to send only limited portion to applicants and keep the rest for the government. That is not new, okay? So this is something we will describe separately, but this is something that LMIA workers actually receive, because they're supposed to receive only one portion of the whole document called LMIA, and the employer keeps the rest, and then application goes through. So this is something we will describe in details, but for now, for the sake of time, I just want to emphasize certain things like exemption code. Good. Duties that must be described clearly, job requirements, minimum education requirements. So we need to understand, we're talking about startup visa program. There is no specific requirement, but why it's here? Well, because people want to see, and when I say people, IRCC people, they want to see that entrepreneur arriving under certain code and under certain qualification status within the company, like CEO or CFO or CTO, they can perform the job, which is critical and inevitably leads to assessment of people coming into the stream of startup visa program. Again, it's a great update. We know what's coming now. Now selection criteria will rise, because obviously if you have unemployed person, it will be hard to justify that that person without degree, without any experience, unemployed for 20 years, can suddenly become CEO of the company or can perform, let's say, financial duties or technical duties. So those things in place, we definitely need to address one more thing. Clearly, this is something that we need to address dual intent, right? So dual intent is critical, and this is exactly what we address in one of our videos. Watch that link below. We have that link for our dual intent video, and this is something we need to address here very briefly. We will explain it separately. Watch our next upcoming videos. Follow us on the channel. Dual intent means person must have ability to prove that if a job is no longer there, permanent residency is not granted for any reason, the person has means and ability to return and continue his or her life back home. This is the point. People sometimes argue with me like, Dr. Alex, why they demand this if they know I'm in PR application process? You are in process. There is no guarantee. So that's why government want to see if you will return, if they will refuse your application for some reason. Maybe it's not only your reason. Let's say you have a designated person who fail, and then the whole team fail, and then you have to be able to go back and return to your home country. Anyway, another big announcement here, the longevity of the application approved. The visa, the work permit is issued for 1 year with ability to extend if government requests proofs, then proofs must be provided that business deserves to be continued and the person deserves to be here. So interesting point here, very interesting point. Again, I will definitely record in a few days very practical videos on each section of this document, and this document goes like this. Requirement goes like this. Now it must be identified that the province of destination is a province that described in your application and your commitment certificate. So in this case, we have to be very careful, because it's not that rare that people claiming to us, yeah, we want to go to Canada. And then they say, well, we definitely going to Ontario, or even businesses in BC, if that's all right. Before, we had no proof to push them and say, well, listen, you cannot do that. It's not advisable. Now it's direct prohibition. It's basically the reason for refusal. If somebody say, my business is in BC, in Vancouver, but I want to move to Ontario, Mississauga, and live there because my family, friends, etc. there. So it's not possible anymore. Government will refuse. City of destination is kind of fuzzy thing, because I think they will give us some slack here, because basically city of destination, if we're talking about Metro Vancouver area, that's still Metro Vancouver area. If it's GTA, like Toronto area, definitely it goes that way also. So we're talking about some flexibility within the province, because again, the structure of the provinces in Canada is quite rigid. It's all about metro areas, and it's not that many. So last on the list, definitely I mentioned duration, definitely the refusal reason. Refusal itself must be explained. Yes, somebody can argue that it was always the case. No, it wasn't, because definitely government was using artificial intelligence. Again, watch another video. We have incredible video on artificial intelligence. So those things exist, and now on paper, in instructions. And last thing before we finish this, and I promise we will dedicate special video to each and every sector of this update, which just came out this week. Surprise, surprise, public doesn't know about this, because this is instructions for officers, not for the public. If you go to the regular public source website, you don't see it there yet. Maybe it will be there next week, and maybe by the time this video is published, you will see it. But at the moment of recording this video, we don't have it. So that means we know something that the general public deserve to know. And that's why we stay on guard for you. And we definitely would like you to follow our channel for updates, for news, and for many other interesting videos. So with that, I would like to stop sharing and stop this recording and send it to you by any means of communication on any platform we have. And definitely we need to address it further in many more details.